Hi folks, welcome back. I'm Kayaoğlu. Today is 10 September 2025, and just yesterday, the Israeli Air Force attacked a meeting of Hamas leaders in the Qatari capital of Doha. Hamas leaders were discussing a U.S. proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza. The aim is to put an end to the fighting that has been going on since Hamas's attacks on southern Israel on 7 October 2023. Now, that Israel attacked a main U.S. ally in the Middle East, in the Persian Gulf, got some, shall we say, enthusiastic people on social media to start itching for a fight between Turkey and Israel. Of course, some of these characters are Israeli and they think that they can take out any terrorist in the world with whatever they want. And on the other hand, some of my fellow Turks who think that the Ottoman Empire is still around and we can just slap around whoever we want with the big Ottoman slap. Well, let's just say that social media is full of such enthusiastic souls. I'm here to tell you why a war between Turkey and Israel is highly unlikely. Number one, Turkey, unlike Iran, just does not take the bait. When we Turks face a geopolitical challenge, we take our sweet time and bet ourselves into the situationship, if you will, and then use a mix of tools to fight our conflicts. And diplomacy is always in that mix of tools. That is to say, Ankara is not going to go through this challenge on Israel's terms. And I think Israeli leaders understand that. Of course, the Israeli side has been acting quite viciously since October 7th, in large part to avenge October 7th. Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Israeli military brass still remain rational. Israeli leaders know that they might get in the first punch, but that Turkey is a much heavier pugilist compared to Iran with longer arms and much more dexterous hands. Reason number two is Azerbaijan, which is Turkey's fellow Turkic republic and regional ally, but also the main supplier of refined and crude oil to Israel. And a lot of those petroleum products and crude oil either go through Turkish pipelines or through sea lanes that are very close to Turkey. So Baku will not be too happy about a fight between Ankara and Jerusalem. Now, Azerbaijan is really a very important country for both Turkey and Israel. The Azerbaijanis have been mediating between the two sides since last spring, which has resulted in a hotline being established between the Turkish and Israeli militaries, which has prevented a direct confrontation between them in Syria. And for the Israeli side, a less pleasant aspect to all of this is that the Azerbaijanis have signaled to them that if they were to pick a fight with Turkey, by its treaty commitments, Azerbaijan would have to side with Ankara. That's per the Declaration of Alliance signed by Turkish President Erdogan and Azerbaijani President Aliyev in the town of Shusha in June 2021. Reason number three why Turkey and Israel will probably not fight is business.
It's not personal, Sonny. It's strictly business.
Now, the two countries used to have robust trade, and there was talk that Turkey would be the main conduit through which Israeli offshore natural gas would be pipelined into Turkish networks and from there on exported into Europe. Obviously, because of everything that's going on in the region, that's not going to happen for a while. Of course, last year in 2024, Turkey completely banned all trade with Israel. Meanwhile, the Turkish government barred all overflights by Israeli official planes and military aircraft from using its airspace. But some Turkish merchants are suspected of using third-party countries to access Israeli markets to sell their goods and services to the Israelis. Israeli businesses still need a lot of intermediary goods as well as finished products from Turkish industries. You did not have that sort of a relationship between Iran and Israel. Before I move on to reason number four, I have a quick request, folks. If you've enjoyed this video so far and you would like to see more fun content on history and geopolitics, please click like and subscribe, share this video with your friends, and turn on notifications. Reason number four why Turkey and Israel are unlikely to fight is that despite all the hullabaloo over Israeli military prowess, we have F-35 Adirs and the Turks don't have anything. In fact, neither country really has a clear military edge over the other one. Yes, the Jewish state might have a stronger air force, but the Israeli Navy comes nowhere close to the Turkish naval forces, which, thanks to Turkey's industrial prowess, produces warships every year like it's a computer game. If a war were to happen, God forbid, but if it were to happen, the Turkish Navy could very quickly halt Israel's seaborne trade with the outside world and could possibly turn Israel's natural gas platforms offshore into smithereens. As President Trump would say, not good, very bad. And unlike Iran, which had only two main assets to fight Israel, its regional proxies and ballistic missiles, the first of which was taken out by Israel, of course, in the run-up to the 12-day war in June 2025, Turkey has a much wider range of attack vectors available to it that Iran just did not have. On a similar note, if Israel were to even hint at deploying nuclear weapons, Turkey could get its hands on nuclear weapons fairly quickly. So that one's also out of question. Last but certainly not least, and in fact this is a factor that actually might obviate a lot of the things that I have discussed so far, our number 5 reason for why Turkey and Israel are unlikely to fight a war. Team America, folks. Now, obviously, a lot of the U.S. political establishment, we have found out in the last 2 years, is really in the pockets of the extremist elements of Israel. And if Israel were to do something stupid against Turkey, some of those characters in Congress and a few of the think-tanking idiots in Washington might cheer on. We've seen some indication to that. The U.S. Congress might even slap new sanctions on Turkey. But neither President Trump nor any future U.S. administration will be all too pleased to see its two regional allies in the Middle East duking it out at a time when the United States is trying to extricate itself from this part of the world to focus on
China. I love them. China. 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 China.
China. And no matter what the preferences are in D.C., preventing a fight between its two close partners in the Middle East is a lot easier than trying to break them apart in the middle of a fight. And Trump probably sent that warning to both Erdogan and Netanyahu. All right, so those are my 5 factors why Turkey and Israel are highly unlikely to get into a war. Of course, none of what I've said so far is a sure thing. As my man Tony Stark would say,
it's an imperfect world, but it's the only one we've got.
For example, the two countries, Turkey and Israel, might exchange brief blows in Syria. Turkey already experienced that with Russia during the course of the Syrian civil war. Likewise, Israel could end up attacking Turkish positions in northern Cyprus, although that would be excruciatingly stupid for the Israeli side because there are a lot of Israelis living on both sides of the divide on the island of Cyprus. And of course, just by looking at the general drift of events in the Middle East, in North Africa, in the Persian Gulf since October 2023, we should probably not take anything for granted. All right, that's it. What do you think about Turkey and Israel's chances? Leave a comment below. And don't forget to do the whole click like, subscribe, share with your friends, turn on notifications thingies. Thanks for watching, folks. I'll see you in the next video.